by the blood of our people are your lands kept safe.
I see in your eyes the same fear that will take the heart of me.
So do all who live to see such times.
By all that you hold dear, this good earth.
There's some good in this earth, and it's worth fighting.
So episode 2 begins with Galadriel swimming, and it's nighttime, and yeah, I guess her plan is just to swim back.
Yeah, I mean, this could be a nod to like elves having, almost like a magical quantity of endurance, or some sort of special skill. But yeah, to swim all the way back, it seems like if she wasn't gonna go through with this, I just don't get on the boat. Why would you do this to yourself?
Mhm. And then Nori and her friend Poppy meet the Meteor Man, and then we have some comic relief of the wheelbarrow rolling away.
Yeah.
So, and then Nori talks about she feels like she was chosen to meet the Meteor Man. I'm like, yes, it's hobbits being chosen again for that special task. That's nice.
Well, and also here, like the thing about that line though is like,
I'm gonna keep calling them hobbits. I don't know if I do this Harfoot thing.
but like the thing about that line, it's like so she says, you know, he must be important. It's like, well, yeah, I mean he he's a meteor man. Like he's not nothing. He's clearly got some magical properties. And as far as these Harfoots are concerned, like that's like, you know, you don't even need to be that grand to be magical to them. Like a lot of things are magical to them.
I mean, I'm just writing down points of interest. I'm not. I guess I wasn't following the plot, but I did note that when Arondir goes through the tunnel, so he's going through the tunnel. Bronwyn's gonna run home and warn the village people that we should we should evacuate.
That's right.
The tunnel, they used that effect that they used on the road with the Black
I noticed
Rider.
that too. I love the callback. I love it.
With it getting narrow, like getting shorter or longer. I can't remember what they did, but
yeah, it's almost like the distance seems to kind of like zoom in on you a little bit.
And then I noted that Celebrimbor admires the dwarves, and Elrond is friends with Durin the Fourth.
Yeah, that was actually something I was not expecting. So based on the trailer, and based on some lines of dialogue from the Hobbit trilogies by Peter Jackson, I was expecting him to go there and become friends. I didn't realize that at this point in time, he had already been there and become good friends. So that was an interesting bit that I was not expecting. I was like, oh, well, how is this gonna, like, how is it gonna be just an easy an easy quest for him to do? Just you know, walk up and say, "Hey, how's it going?"
And they won't let him in, so he uses the rite of Sintarog.
Yeah, and right at that scene, just before he does that, did you catch a little bit of a nod to a Gimli quote where he's saying that they're going to welcome us with malt beer and salted pork? Yeah. I like that. I like that kind of stuff just thrown in there. It makes it feel even more welcoming and more like coming back to Middle Earth.
And this whole rite at Sintarog is a hammer contest. You keep smashing rocks until you give up.
Yeah, which that does make sense to me in some weird dwarf way. Like I get that it's like it's both an endurance and a strength, like it's a feats of strength kind of challenge, and I guess the king would be the best at it based on how
I saw a lot of dwarf women there without beards, Kevin. So
I noticed, but they had facial hair, so they had like
sideburns.
Whiskers. Yeah, they had sideburns and a little bit of whiskers, but not as full as male dwarves. How much does that, as of now, it is a little bit strange, I will say, but I if that's like one of the few problems in terms of the design choice. I can let certain things pass, and I think I can let that go. If that's one of the only ones we see the Meteor Man wake up, and
Okay.
he does that thing we see in the trailer where he kind of like yells, and he like bends.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
So like this guy clearly has power, and then that's also where we get the Harfoot snapping his leg.
Right, which I'm worried about. I feel like
Yeah.
injury like that would kill you in those days.
Now, what I will say though is that I don't know how much help she could have been. Like, there's all these other people standing around, and they're not helping him. So
Yeah, it's nonsense. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, so like, oh, he broke his leg because
you weren't there.
Like, well, what were you all doing? Just standing around, like, watching this? Like, he's the only one holding up this pole. So
Yeah.
it's to me that was a little bit of a weird. Like, I don't mind the setup of him breaking his leg, forcing them to maybe delay their journey and maybe getting into mischief, but to have that make her feel bad, maybe she's just mad that she wasn't there helping, and she's kind of being irrational, but it's just like a silly thing. Hopefully nobody blames her. Hopefully no one's like, this is all you're doing. Well, you're off gallivanting. He had to lift that pole by himself. And it's like, well, why? Why? You were right there. You just stood by.
It's not my job.
It's not my job. It's your people's job.
And anyway, I noted that Galadriel ends up on that shipwreck. They don't want to help her, but the one woman does, and then there's a lot of hostility towards her being an elf. Even though, and then I don't recall. The woman on the ship looks at Galadriel and says, "You lied." I don't think Galadriel said anything.
No, she didn't.
So I'm like, I wrote down, "You lied."
Yeah. So what I can gather is that I think it was more like they assumed she was human because I guess they had been on a boat with other humans and it got attacked, and so when it turns out she wasn't human, she took that as a lie because they had basically been assuming she was human. But you're right, like Galadriel never said anything. It's not a lie, and I don't get like she pushes her in the water. Like, you lie, push, and it's just like, wait a minute. So your whole plan here is to sacrifice her. So that hopefully the monster is like, full. Doesn't
Yeah.
like-
You led the monster to us. Okay, sure. And the monster they called the Worm.
Yeah, this is an interesting scene. It's not one that I am familiar with from Middle Earth. I assumed there was some stuff in the water.
We didn't really have any aquatic scenes in the.
No.
Well, I mean just the canoeing on the rivers, but not like open water.
Right, like that, like, yeah, you're not finding this kind of thing in that river, I would imagine. But yeah, so this was a pretty scary scene. It kind of reminded me of Beowulf in a way. You remember that movie? Like the Beowulf kind of has a sea monster battle at one point in that movie, and it has very similar elements to it in terms of like you can't really see the full monster. You know what I mean? Like you can see bits and pieces of it at times, and then I really liked how they used the camera work to be above water and then come under the water as it like smashes down into the water.
Yeah.
I thought the scene was filmed very well. And for a water action scene that I was not expecting, to be honest, I thought it was filmed pretty well. Like I knew there was going to be something happen on this water because of the trailers, but I just didn't realize how much of it was going to be kind of happening here.
Yeah, and then the worm attacks,
Yep.
and Halbrand and Galadriel are the only two survivors.
Yeah, so Halbrand, so while Galadriel gets pushed in the water, he separates a hunk of raft from the rest and pushes them off. So
he just lets them go.
Yeah, so in a way, he pushes them like into danger, the same way that they pushed her into danger. But yeah, it's not clear that he would have like not pushed her into the water yet. Like he kind of seems a little rough around the edges, that's for sure.
We find out that Durin is bitter because he hasn't seen Elrond in 20 years, and
Mhm.
that's not a long time for Elrond, but for the rest of us, 20 years is a long time.
So this is actually something that I didn't realize fully. I know dwarves live longer than humans,
hmm
but I didn't realize that obviously they're not immortal. So I didn't realize that 20 years was a long time to them. I mean, 20 years is a long time. Like, let's be real. But I just didn't realize how significant it would be to a dwarf. So that was an
hmm
interesting bit there, and I really like that scene because it does get at the heart of something that
Like elves are out of touch with mortals in
elves
this.
are completely out of touch with the world. Like
Yeah.
they are patrolling
So
this world.
it's a good wake up call to Elrond. Maybe this is
Yeah,
like some
someone
spiritual
who
development
and
for
he's an elf. In particular, him, he
him.
actually wants to be very friendly and welcoming of these other races, but even he is out of touch with the dwarves and potentially the humans too. So
hmm
I do think that's a nice nod and a nice idea of like world building where even the good elves they don't fully understand everyone else. Like they are
hmm
still a separate creature that is otherworldly in a way.
hmm and we finally get to see dwarven hospitality finally. So like Elrond is having dinner
Mm-hmm.
with Durin and his wife, and you see his kids. So you see like dwarfish family life, which is kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah. Now this is actually something that I can't fault the show without faulting Peter Jackson for this because the way he portrays dwarves in in the Hobbit, especially in the Battle for of Five Armies, um, he does portray even the kingly ones to be a bit silly. You know what I mean? Like they come across as a bit rough, a bit kind of goofy, and it's one that I don't know if it holds up in book lore, and especially um Thorin Oakenshield. He's not goofy at all. He
Mm-hmm.
portrays the dwarves in a very stately manner, but we kind of get back to this whole kind of goofy dwarfness, if that makes sense. Which I don't mind. I don't hate it. It's just it's one that I didn't know what direction they were gonna go in. I will say it's nice. This might be jumping ahead just a tad, but we will see some of that more stately dwarf culture coming up, and so I do like that they have that
Yeah,
within this as well.
yeah, and yeah, I noted that Disa does seem to have sideburns.
Yep.
Um,
And she's actually very she's a very warm character. Like
yeah,
even if you didn't like the idea of this character, the character itself is the warm, welcoming dwarf that we've been waiting for. Like,
yeah, and she changes Durin's mind about uh letting Elrond hang around a bit and,
yeah, but
and
like
talk.
we keep hearing about how these dwarves are very friendly and welcoming, and there's gonna be endless casks of beer and all this food, and they're just gonna be super like warm and friendly, and we have not seen that ever because we've always had dwarves who are dealing with trauma, so we've
Mhm.
never really dealt with a dwarf that, like you said, we get dwarves in their home, how they hope to be most days, and she's one of the most friendly characters in the entire show.
Mhm.
So I think she does have an energy to her that is a bit infectious, and people are gonna have to really find it hard to keep hating her if they don't like the character to begin with. We do get a quick scene with Galadriel and Halbrand on the boat or on
Mhm.
their little raft, and this is where she finds out that there are orcs like that attacked him.
Exactly, and this is kind of where I make the note that these orcs are showing up right as the elves pull away. It's like it's almost like they were just waiting for the elves to like, okay, everything's fine, we can go. All right, time to come in.
Yeah, in
It's
like
almost like they were like lying in wait, just being like, okay, we're just gonna make our move when the elves leave, and as soon as they leave, they make their move.
well, and here's the other thing, and now I don't think I just want this to be clear. I do not think this is happening in this show, but in another show, in say, like a Game of Thrones style show, you might look to that decision and theorize that maybe the king is in on it. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
it lines up so perfectly that you're like, he made a stupid decision, and then that decision is having these huge consequences, and it's like,
So
okay,
I don't even know if he'd be in on it. Like I get what you're saying, and I know you're not saying he's on it because it'd just be out of it for
yeah,
Lord of
it
the
would
Rings.
make zero sense. I am not saying
But
that at all.
but but it's I think the orcs were just like they were just waiting. They knew the elves would leave at some point, and then they're doing it. Like, all right, let's
Yeah.
go. They didn't even give it a week.
No, no, they literally attack the town like the next day. Um, I do also want to point out just real quick. This is just a silly take, but that sail that they have on their raft, that is
Oh,
not doing a damn thing. As seasoned veteran sailors such as ourselves, that sail is useless. It's not doing
it is,
anything.
and that sailboat can't. It's not. It's it can't handle a storm like that
It
at
not only
all.
cannot handle storm, they have random things just jutting
Yeah.
off the side, adding weird ballast to it that it's gonna just like be super awkward to handle. Like it doesn't even make
No,
sense.
I don't think a boat. I mean, I don't make sailboats, but like I know a little bit about sailing. I don't think a boat like that can even work. You would just go the direction of the wind.
Yeah,
You need like you need a keel, you need a rudder, you need somewhat of a boat shape, you need
yeah.
like triangular sails and
Also, that's what I thought she was making in this scene. So she's pulling at one of these side beams that's like hanging in the water. I thought she was trying to steer the boat.
I thought that was a rudder too, is it not? Because I
No,
was like, what is she doing?
she's tying herself to a piece of wood.
Well, yeah, I remember that, and then that doesn't work out for her at all. It just
No,
creates a scenario where she needs to be rescued.
it's straight up.
It's not just a piece of wood. It's a piece of wood with like a rock at the bottom to make it sink.
which which means that the rock is hanging off the boat and like it's just in the water.
Why do we have this?
Just cut the rock off. I don't know what they're doing with this rock.
No, I
Like
don't know. And she even tries to take him down with her. He's like, "Okay, hold my hand."
she
Luckily,
even
he didn't.
she even is like advising him tie himself to a piece of wood. Okay, Galadriel, you stick to the fighting on land because it doesn't make any sense. I do want to
um,
see what the notes say in this script if that's ever released.
yeah, I wrote that. Galadriel tied self to mast with a rock at the bottom. That's in my notes.
I don't know. I mean, it sets up a fun daring save, but and we're not quite at the storm yet. So she's just tugging at this thing in the scene,